Spinning. We are live, boys. Welcome to Ballers and Briefs. It is the 13th of September. We are officially through week one.
In the books.
Yes. And it was
books,
hell of a week for everybody, NFL, fantasy included.
Always is. Mix of emotions.
Yes.
It's like a little roller coaster. It's like a kiddie
They
roller
say in
coaster.
football sometimes that a quarterback kind of masks sometimes the deficiencies of a whole team. Well, I would say that this week for me, Tyreek Hill actually masked the deficiencies of my coaching.
My man Brad pulled it out of the trash can with the win.
I'm gonna get in front of the congregation and let them know what happened. You know that I was at Disney and left Mark Andrews in, even though he wasn't going to play. That cost me 0. I had the unfortunate luck of having Kadarius Toney in, and we all know what happened with that. And I also had the unfortunate luck of having Christian Kirk, who also only got, I believe, 1 catch for 1 yard or something along those lines as well.
He was one of my sleepers, and
but the joys of a 12-man PPR is that sometimes when you have that breakout star, such as Tyreek Hill, and kind of go back to the first episodes that we talked about, and sort of the reasoning behind why I decided to go with the Tyreek Hill in comparison to, say, a C-Mac, was the ability that on any given day he could turn out 11 catches for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that was enough basically to put my team over. I also had Lamar Jackson, who kind of went to bed on me a little bit. He just wasn't able to really find the end zone this week, but again, was still able to pull the W off. I will say that my opponent also had Dallas Goedert, who only got 0 points. It was definitely a really, really weird week.
It was the most weird week. I think I don't think I've seen a fantasy week in I think since maybe the COVID year that we've had such a weird, I think just astronomically weird first week where like these number 1 overall picks, right? Like I would say the top 5, that range of top 5, the Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chase, the Tyreek Hill, the CMC, and whoever your 5th, Travis Kelce, right? Average Travis Kelce. These guys, obviously Travis Kelce didn't play. Jamar Chase might as well have not played because he didn't show up. Justin Jefferson, I don't even think was probably the best wide receiver on the field in his game at that point in time. Like, not saying skill wise, but fantasy, he didn't see the end zone twice. And then you had Tyreek Hill, who put a 40 burger up there, a 44 or whatever it was, and pulled, I swear, people out of the dumps that should have lost. Like I said, like we just said that you should have lost.
You should have lost. Bad coaching, and
just pulled you out.
Can't happen. But the best part of my coaching was that I remembered Tyreek Hill and I put him in my lineup. So from that point, I guess I gotta commend myself for doing that, for choosing him when I could have chose C-Mac, I believe, who was also on the board at the time, who, if I would have chosen him, wouldn't have got me enough points to put me overboard this week.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean,
again,
I had
it
him
does go back to your number 1 draft pick matters. As far as for these 12-man, 10-man, season-long episodes, you got to have a number 1 that can put up points for you.
I mean, I had that Christian McCaffrey that in the 10-man league that we're in, and obviously he didn't carry me to a win. I mean, I went 0 for 3 in 3 leagues this week.
Let's talk about it, Cody. Let's talk about it.
That's something I talked about too, though.
It was a shit show, literally. I mean, I had a Trevor Lawrence tried to Trevor Lawrence pair with Evan Ingram and ETN, and those guys, they got what they needed. I mean, Ingram hit his projection. ETN got around, I think it was like 17 plus, and Trevor Lawrence had like 17 plus, but all the catches and all the touchdowns went to my man Calvin Ridley. I bet on football all that you want, bro, because if you come out and play like that every week, That's just
like a number one,
raw, you know.
like a number one receiver.
And then in the other league, I had it was CMC, my number one, and I mean he was the best running back in football this week, but no defense from Miami at all. Literally, that just zeroed me out on the board. And then when you don't have another wide receiver, you don't have a wide receiver that really shows up at all. It just in these PPR, it's just you're dead. You're dead in the water. I mean, I had my CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, we saw what Dallas did. Dallas didn't win with offense; they won with their defense. Basically, just destroyed the Giants. And I mean, there's something that we can go to. Yeah, like literally, the thoughts on Dallas.
I mean, there's an important take away from CMC on DFS as well that I called. The reason I wasn't playing him was because he was the most expensive running back, and he needed, 40 points to get you there in fantasy.
27's not enough.
Daily fantasy, exactly. He may have done good in season long for you, but he didn't capture anywhere near what he needed to capture for daily fantasy. So that's a good take for people to realize when they're trying to compare season long versus daily fantasy, whereas Christian McCaffrey can get 27 points in season long and it be perfect and great and everything you want. But if you're drafting Christian McCaffrey at a $10,000 salary on daily fantasy, 27 points is not cutting it. It's not going to be enough to get you a win.
That you want that exact, and let's just say you want exact scoring, apples to apples scoring in daily fantasy. Like here, and this is one I'm going to chalk up to being someone that didn't think it was going to happen. Aaron Jones, for what he cost versus what Christian McCaffrey cost. I mean, they were the basically identical score, like 26.9 and 26.7 or something like that.
And Aaron Jones wins you the tournament because he's cheaper.
Yes, and especially if you played him at all in the afternoon slate, he was killing it.
What Aaron Jones' production would be, just because I thought that there were some reports that I believe it's Dylan, the other running back there, was going to start to command additional carries, but from me watching just, of course, only through red zone, it didn't seem like that was the case. It seemed like Aaron Jones was commanding a lot more in this new kind of LaFleur offense instead of
might have. So, I think Aaron Jones excelled in receiving yards, is where he's substantiated over Dylan was receptions. He even had like a receiving touchdown, I think, as well. So they might,
9 attempts for 41 yards rushing.
Yeah.
He went 2 for 4 for 86 and a TD in receiving. So he had a 1 rushing, 1 receiving, but his rushing yards were only 41 yards.
The Dylan and Aaron Jones was probably equivalent. The only difference was that reception yards set him off. Daily on DraftKings, it's points per reception and then a point for every 10 yards. So if he had 84 yards, there's 8 points right there, 2 receptions, that's 10 points. You add the TD, he's already at 17. That's crazy, not counting his rushing. So if he's splitting rushing yards with Dylan, I think it's a good take to pull from this, is that he's your pass catching back. And that's huge for DraftKings, whereas it would have worked on FanDuel, but that's not necessarily what you're looking for on FanDuel.
Going to work here.
I think that's killer. For Jordan Love, though. Like Jordan Love, I think he's looked comfortable. I mean,
What did you think of his first game? What did you think, kind of getting his first?
I mean, he's no Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think he's terrible. I felt like he was set up to succeed. Even without his number 1 wide receiver and Christian Watson, I felt like he was set up for success, right? I think LaFleur has dealt with quarterbacks that aren't Aaron Rodgers before. I mean, remember he was in Tennessee with Tannehill before he became the head coach in Green Bay, and he was like in round. He was in Los Angeles with Jared Goff. So he's seen these quarterbacks that are not Aaron Rodgers. Let's not just think that Aaron Rodgers made Matt LaFleur. Like, let's just be honest. That's Sean McVay. Sean McVay made Matt LaFleur. So, and then he just jumped along until he got a head gig, and he just happened to fall in Aaron Rodgers' lap. But I still think we kind of see where that took us, right? So I think Jordan Love, that Aaron Jones just is a hell of a mix for him because he's there when he needs him to be, and you start beating him down with the play action the whole time, and he's just there out of the backfield. You know, I don't think he's terrible.
They absolutely dogged a division rival. You know, I would take.
Yeah,
I think he did very well. I have a feeling it's only going to get better. It's going to be something like Justin Fields last year, mediocre in the beginning, towards the end of the season, absolutely killing it for fantasy purposes.
I mean, he's not got the wheels that a Justin Fields does, but I think I'm going to throw him in that Dak type tier, if that makes any sense. Like I'm saying, like he's that Dak type quarterback, which I mean, I think there's a lot of people like Dallas Cowboy fans want to anoint Dak the savior of the world, right? But you have Jordan Love, and Jordan Love is he's in that tier, right? Like I think he could be a top, I would say, in his offense, right? He's a top 20 quarterback in the league, right? Like I mean, like he's down in there. Yeah. He's down in there with guys like Brock Purdy and dudes like that, which are, I still think, like we always said about Tom Brady for like ever, a system quarterback, but literally we knew that was a load of shit after he left New England. But Brock Purdy and Jordan Love, I mean, Jordan Love sat behind an arguable Hall of Famer for 3 years, right? So let's give him some props, give him his due. He may come out of bed this week. So
a lot of props. Of course, you know, sometimes when defenses don't have a lot of film on you to kind of break you down, it's a lot more difficult to scheme. Whereas now they have this film to kind of check your tendencies, kind of see how you release the ball, where the ball comes out, are you staring down your receivers, those types of things. You might start to see maybe a regression a little bit in the second week. Again, just given the game tape now on him. But I believe again that LaFleur is out to kind of prove something a little bit himself. Kind of being with Aaron Rodgers, a lot of times Aaron Rodgers gets all the credit for all the great plays, whereas with him gone now, that will all kind of go to LaFleur now. And again, it seemed like the scheme that Jordan Love was put in was, as you said, it was built for him to be successful. It wasn't built for him to be within the system. He was the whole build out. And so from a fantasy perspective, that's fairly interesting because I mean, I really want to watch these numbers as they continue to come in. If he continues to get, you know, 2 or 3 touchdowns a clip, he's definitely an interesting play. Maybe in a bye week where your quarterback is out and you just need a guy for a week, and you don't have anyone on the bench. He's definitely a sneaky play. I'm not sure how much he's being owned or across the leagues, but again, that might be an interesting play.
I mean,
and also Romeo Doubs. I think that's his name, Romeo Doubs. Sneaky play. Let's see in a 12-man league. If he's going to continue that production,
Scooped him off the waiver wire. Yeah, I told y'all last week on Saturday, he was one of my sneaky waiver wire pickups because of Christian Watson being out. And even though he was carrying that questionable tag with a hamstring, it didn't seem to bother him at all. Like he did not look like that was an issue. I mean, and you were talking about like Jordan Love, how much he's owned. I mean, according to ESPN, he's rostered in about 32%, roughly 32%. That's changed.
Okay, so he's out there.
Since waivers come out, that's gone up about 16%. So he went from about 16% owned across all of ESPN to almost 32%. So I mean, he's doubled. Like, and he scored 23 points last week
against a division rival. Don't forget that.
Three touchdowns.
Be better. It's like somebody knows your offense, right? They're ready for it. and he still
Yeah.
dominated. I look forward to get better, like I said.
Three TD, 245 yards, 3 TDs, no interceptions, and no fumbles. I mean, it's pretty proficient. Like literally, and his passer rating was probably through the roof. Obviously, that's not something that it shows here, but yeah,
We got love
he's
for
projected. He's
J-Love.
projected to come down to earth. I think this week with about the same amount of yards, 247.7 yards, but only
What's the defense?
against Atlanta. It's against Atlanta. So I mean,
I like that matchup. I like that matchup.
I agree.
It's
I
in
like
the dome.
that matchup.
It's in the dome.
I like
So
that matchup. Based off of what I saw kind of Atlanta do last week, they're susceptible.
Yeah.
A nice, Romeo Dobbs on the post, I can see it. So
I'm interested to see Jordan Love to this Musgrave kid because of the way that Hayden Hurst in Carolina ate up Atlanta's ass. That was a hell of a low ball play if you played him cheap.
Actually, I had Hayden Hurst on the bench. Unfortunately, I should have actually replaced him with Andrews, but left him on the bench. But happy to have him just in case because I love that target share he got from Bryce Young.
I could see it being a shootout, to be honest, man. Bijan Robinson popped off. It wasn't even just easy, freely given plays created by his team. It was plays made by him. Like he was making the plays. He was breaking tackles. He broke like 3 tackles on one play for a touchdown.
I didn't think the speed would translate on this level to the degree that it has, at least from what I saw so far. Sometimes you can't really. Sometimes a guy looks like it may not translate over, but his speed translates, and so expect him to do that.
I think Atlanta is nice.
Saquon Barkley's rookie year, he could have that. Just given the amount of targets and touches, Bijan Robinson fans owners should be really happy. I
was shocked they did what they did to Carolina. Carolina's usually got a really consistent defense with everybody in the division. Me being a Saints fan, I follow everybody in that division very well, and I had actually bet on Carolina, and it, Robinson tore they ass apart. So
and the backup, or I guess 1B, Tyler Algier did not shit the bed. Algier looked good. I was reading that the ESPN fantasy analyst and even Yahoo was like, if you don't have Algier on your roster him, because I think in this offense, we're going to see this Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier popping off either together every week or bang, 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 because you don't know who's going to be in there because they both have a certain set of skills. And Tyler Algier is a good pass catcher out of the backfield too. Yeah, he's not Bijan Robinson, but we haven't seen Bijan Robinson totally unleashed yet. But we also didn't see fully Tyler Algier and his set of skills unleashed yet either. So I think that if you don't have, if he's setting out there in a waiver wire, he's there as a waiver for you in season long, and he's there. Yeah. If you don't grab him, that's your own fault because that somebody else is going to, and he's going to end up burning somebody eventually.
Hot take.
I agree. It's hard to scale that for daily fantasy though. DraftKings and FanDuel, it's hard not because, well, for numerous reasons. One, because how's the backfield look, right? How are they going to be splitting it 50-50? Is it going to be 60-40 split? Is it going to be 70-30 split? Either way, what we do know is that they're going to be eating into each other's, bulk. So for DraftKings, it doesn't look good, number one. Number two, does that mean Atlanta is going to be now a primary run team, right? Primary run teams they usually slow down the game, or in other words, they speed up the game. The clock doesn't stop. They're always running the ball and less plays, less scores. Next thing you know, you're in the fourth quarter and the score is 13-7, and you're on your fantasy team like, yeah, Bijan Robinson scored, but dude's got 10 points because the game's almost over already. Like, what just happened? So, for DraftKings purposes, I probably won't touch neither one of them this week. because I need to see more, right? I need to see how that backfield share is actually going to be split or what they're trending towards splitting. But on FanDuel, I think you could take a stand on like either Algier or Robinson.
Algier's a fourth ranked running back, and Bijan's the 7th ranked running back.
Because all you need is touchdowns on there. On FanDuel, on DraftKings, you need production. You need, lots of carries, lots of receptions. And when there's 2 running backs splitting the backfield, you don't get that.
Yeah.
It's hard to measure.
Yeah. So on to another topic. I know that we killed it on Tua. Phil, I know kind of harping on it, but Tua was the answer this week. No?
Yeah, mean,
even though we did kind of say we all wanted to stay away from that game because it was high owned, it did kind of burn us in the end. I mean, I know that we did have him some in the afternoon slate.
I mean, that's what happens, right? That's what happens when you're trying to win big and you know the things that we know and you learn the information that we know. And when a game is chalky, aka high owned, and everybody's on it because it's the highest over under, it's easier to fade it and hope it doesn't do well, so that way you're the only one that wins big. When it plays to the way it's predicted, now you have to worry about getting different somewhere else. And I tell you right now, that was still a really high owned game, but the people who won it had gotten different elsewhere in their lineups, and it worked out for them. Like playing like a super pump play that popped off. I mean, this isn't a super pump play, but somebody that popped off was Brandon Ayuk, but he was low owned. He was like 3% owned across the board. Like nobody was touching the 49ers game. So if you mixed, the Tua lineup stack that you have, and you just randomly threw Ayuk in there because you had the salary left over and you saw he was low owned, there was your difference. And that's how you win it. So I mean, you can get different elsewhere, but for me, you separate more of the field when you just avoid the game, and it actually works out to your favor where it doesn't score big. I don't have to worry about getting different in 1 or 2 little spots. I've done got different on the whole game. So now 70% of the people that played this game are screwed.
You were correct, because the guy that won the Millie on Sunday did have Tua paired with Brandon Ayuk.
Ayuk in there, so he's low owned. You can't beat that, right? But it's also a play.
And he had a pair with Tyreek Hill, so he had a Tua pair, Tua stack with Reek, and he brought it back. He brought it back with an Austin Eckler.
And that's what you call a slate breaker right there. Somebody that breaks a slate is Tyreek Hill. If you did not own Tyreek Hill, you could not have came in first place in any tournament. That's what you call a slate breaker. He had too many fantasy points, too much value for his cost, and he killed it. And I'll tell you, Tyreek owned was number 1 or number 2 highest owned player on the slate. So if you faded him,
23.62%.
And it was this highest or the second highest owned player on the slate. And if you faded him trying to be different, you lost. He broke the slate. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Not every week is going to play to the way I'm trying to teach people, but it's going to play better my way, the way I'm trying to show people and teach people. You're going to win more often. Like, of course, I'm going to take losses fading, star players in high-owned games. But when I win, I'm going to win big because I'm the only one that did it. I'm going to be the only small percentage, 2, 3, 4, 5% of people who did it. I mean, the Dallas game's another example. How many people rostered Dallas Cowboys defense in the captain slot? If they
fucked up and did it in a cast lineup when I shouldn't have, but I did.
If they did, they win, right? They're guaranteed
put that
to
lineup
win.
in a GPP tournament.
Exactly, and if it's mixed perfectly, you win the million, right? You're guaranteed to win with their defense in the captain spot, but you're guaranteed to win the millions if you mixed it perfect.
You paired it with the kicker.
People who did it. Yeah, you had to have the right matching. And then another one, Jets defense broke the slate. You had to have Jets defense to win. You didn't have to have them in the captain slot, I don't think, but you had to have them in order to win.
That was 20 points. That was an easy 20 cool points, especially after that kid run that back at the end of the game.
In overtime, that counts for defense. So if you're new to daily fantasy, points scored by special teams are counted for the defense of that team. So if you're running, Jets defense and they score a punt return or a blocked field goal, goes to the defense.
That kid was on Hard Knocks. He's like, his whole story was like from the Hard Knock. Like he was like, it was chronicled in Hard Knocks apparently. And that was like at the end of the game, they were interviewing him or whatever. And he was like, yeah, I told Aaron Rodgers that at halftime I was going to go out and make a big play for him. And at the end of the game, he comes out and makes the biggest play, arguably probably of the kid's career ever. And like runs a kickback against who I would say the NFL pundits said had a chance to go to the Super Bowl or at least deep into the playoffs and maybe to the AFC Championship in the Bills. And
that fits the stage narrative, though, right?
Yes, they did have to sacrifice themselves. Yeah. They did have to sacrifice Aaron Rodgers to get that win, but if Aaron Rodgers didn't go down, would the game gone the same way? I don't know. I doubt it. Aaron Rodgers, as we all said, garbage, got his ass cooked. I don't know if it was just
I called that
4 plays in, man. 4 plays in.
I said Aaron Rodgers is dog shit first week of every NFL season. I didn't mean he's going to get injured, so I didn't predict that. But I did tell my friends who spoke to me when making lineups to fade Aaron Rodgers. Cody was one of them. I said fade him. Do not play him tonight.
I did not.
And if you listened, you made money.
We did not. I had to say, Phil did not fade him in the Millie tournament either. In the Millie, we both had him in the Millie.
Yeah, I definitely
we had to because we paired him. We paired him. We both had a Jets wide receiver captain. You went. Who did you go? You went Cobb.
I paired him with Cobb. I paired him.
And I paired him with Lazard. So
Cobb was like 1% owned in the Millie Maker and the captain. So if that hits and Aaron Rodgers does have the breakout game that I was wrong, I could have been wrong about. Could have been $1 million, and that's why I did it. It's a lottery ticket, right? I'm playing the Mega Mill inside of DFS,
and he was in the optimal scoring lineup for cash. So like your high owned players with a high floor that we've talked to, that I know that Phil is a genius with. Aaron Rodgers was in there, and I played him as an optimal play. Ended up cashing because he was 85% owned, which, you keep hearing Phil talk about ownage percentage of players. Yeah. That is crucial when it comes down to cash lineups. You're wanting to just beat out 50% of the field. And if there's 20, a couple of the tournaments I was in had like 23 people in them, right? So if 85% of 23, right, which is it's astronomical, like 16 or more, right? Like 17 people or something like that, have Aaron Rodgers in their lineup. We're all going to shit.
You're still going to, he's
getting 0 points for all of us, right? So you gotta make it up somewhere else. So
I'll put it this way: I faded Aaron Rodgers in my cash lineup, and I won every single head-to-head I played and every single double-up I did because I was part of that few small percent that faded him to where I didn't have anybody in my roster that had 0 points like they did. But Cody still had a chance with a 0-point player because he was so high owned. And that's why you want to do things like that. See, the only reason I faded Aaron Rodgers in cash was not because of my whole background of him shitting the bed. It was because I thought Watson, is it Watson or Wilson? Garrett Wilson was a stronger cash viable play. And they cost roughly about the same. So I played him over Rodgers in all my cash, and it worked out.
He was there, and Aaron Rodgers wasn't. So that was we do. Phil and I do follow another professional. I would say he's professional, fantasy guy, and we watched his stream. And the last thing he said before he closed down, he's like, "What if the backup quarterback comes in?" And he was talking about just for both teams. Like, he's like, somebody's going to roster a backup quarterback tonight and win $1 million because it's just stranger things have happened and it's done. It's won people millions before. And I don't remember if Zach Wilson was in the optimal, or in the,
I don't think
he
was because he sucks and he didn't do much.
The nuts. So
it's crazy that he said that, and you could have done that and potentially won. And it's because
Yes.
he's called it before. I think in a Baltimore game where somebody faded Lamar Jackson and put
Huntley,
in the
yeah.
backup, and he came in and
No
broke the slate.
way.
Yep, and
No
won somebody $1 million,
way.
and everybody was on like Twitter and stuff talking about, DraftKings and FanDuel's a scam and all this shit. And I
No
knew
way.
ahead of time, like usually I would think that. I go straight to the staged scam argument all the time, but I knew because I had watched this guy's podcast that he called it. He said Lamar Jackson's so high owned. What if he gets injured and the backup comes in and you don't have the backup? And people played the backup because of that. I saw all of them sharing their screenshots, winning all kinds of big money. I didn't do it. I just faded Lamar Jackson. I didn't play the backup. They played the backup, and
It all
success.
worked
Money was
out.
raining in. I think, they had members that follow them like coming first, second, third, all in the Millie Maker at the same time and making 1,200,000 and so forth. Just crushed the slate off of that prediction that Lamar Jackson goes down.
Yeah.
It's
I was
rich.
very interested though that Josh Allen kind of
Shit the bed.
crapped the bed a little bit there this against the Jets defense. I really expected him to have a little bit better performance, but I guess much to the kind of detriment of Cody, having Stephon Diggs though did end up working out, and I think he ended up having 10 catches or something like that. And
Yeah,
so
Stephon Diggs
uh,
was good. You needed him in your lineup to win. That was
yeah, that
I
was a
think we
big
called that too. Make sure you play Stephon Diggs. But
that
Josh
was a
Allen, I think
big
that was a
play.
shock to all of us. He looked
Yeah,
I don't think he's done that horrible if you added all of his 18 games played last year. I don't think he threw for 3 interceptions and a fumble total last year. He did it all in one game. And it's
is
like,
it the Madden curse?
yeah, like
It
what the
could
fuck
be,
is
man. It literally could
Is it the
be.
Madden curse? I
If it
mean,
is,
I
I'm
still
not playing
believe
him
in it.
again. I'm
I
not
still
doing
I
it.
believe
hope
in it.
not.
I
I really
always
hope not.
believe in
I
it.
think
I
that
don't. I mean,
Could be
I
the
thought we I
paycheck
thought we
curse.
had I thought we had gotten past that because of
who
Mahomes.
was it? Was it
Mahomes.
Mahomes?
Mahomes is on the front, won a freaking Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think
So
he changed the game there.
Okay. I
and then
didn't
that
even
was like the
realize
year
that that was the
before was
same year.
Lamar. The year before was Lamar, and the year before that was Mahomes again. So he was on the. It was either Brady that won it because it was the year because 2 years
The one
ago
with Brady and
and
Mahomes.
Mahomes on it. So it was the year I think that
Yeah,
they both went to the Super Bowl together or something like that, right? So because what?
it's still a
Oh, the
curse
year
to
before
me.
that was like the year. So, anyways, it was them. It was Mahomes. I think that officially broke the curse or whatever, and and I don't know. I thought we'd gotten past that. Which personally, I play a lot of Madden. I wish they would just take players off of the damn thing. Like I
Just
liked
put
last
Madden
Put
year.
back
a
on the
I
cover.
like I
put a
liked
Why
Super
John
wouldn't they
Bowl
put
Madden.
trophy up
John
there.
Madden
I
back on
liked
the
John
cover?
Madden being on it. Like literally last
Why would
year,
they
the
just put
tribute
him
to
back
John
on the
Madden
cover?
couldn't have been any better. Like it literally
Perfect.
was great. Or put somebody old on there. Like put somebody that's
Hall of
like
Famer or
put a
something like
Hall of
that.
Or
Famer,
put
like
some
somebody that's
coaches
going
on
into the
there.
Hall of Fame on there.
I'll be on there.
Put a
Fuck it.
coach
Put
on
me on
there.
there,
Put Bill
man. I'm on
Belichick
there.
on there.
I'll flex on the
Put
front of the
Mike
cover.
Tomlin on
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not gonna play Josh Allen in daily fantasy until he proves to me otherwise that he's not in some type of like slump, slouch,
there. Yeah,
repeat
that was
offender
definitely a
of
little.
that bullshit that he just did. Same with Joe Burrow. A little bit different with Joe Burrow. I might actually bounce back and play him again, even though he cost me mad money, just because I think two
Josh
things.
Allen's gonna have a. I think Josh Allen's going into or gonna. They're at home with Vegas this week. We saw Vegas squeaked by Denver. It didn't really look nice. Denver didn't look like they had their
Still
shit
don't
together.
trust
So,
him. The
Yeah.
Jets didn't have Aaron Rodgers and he couldn't score more than 13 points. I don't
I
want to
think
hear it.
it's the division narrative, right? Like
That's
what
the
you
one
were
I was going to
saying.
talk about with Burrow is, division. They played like shit against them last year 2 times in a row. They did it again this year. So I'll play Burrow again for that reason. And two, I think people are going to fade him because he played like shit. So I think he'll be low owned. But Josh Allen, you have no excuse. You shit the bed
I
because
wonder if
you're
people stick with
throwing.
Burrow. I think people might stick
I
with
feel like
In the
just
people
season
like
because
long,
would
they will.
I feel like
they
you're so invested. If you have a Higgins, if you have a Chase, if you
Season
have a
long, yeah, they're gonna
Mason,
keep them all day
you
long.
know,
Daily
I feel like you
fantasy,
so yeah,
people don't
true,
play
I
that
saw
shit.
people. There's
true.
in one of our leagues, Brad. Somebody has Burrow, and they left Tua on the bench.
They were thinking like me
And
then.
and they don't have any stack, right? Like they don't have
Yeah.
a Joe Burrow stack like with a T Higgins or a Jamar Chase or even a Joe Mixon. I literally think they have Jalen Waddle. So like it's like you're at that point. Like do you try to sell high on Joe Burrow at this point, like to somebody that has a Jamar Chase or
I mean, is this tour more of a blip or is it a everyday or sort of every week performance? I guess both Burrow and Tua you could say are kind of one hit away, but I kind of feel it a little bit more with Tua. And while I am extremely happy about the performance he had against the Chargers, that Chargers defense has been known to be susceptible
they're
to the
terrible.
pass.
They're bad. To
So
be the
is that
highest paid in the
really a
league, they're trash.
reflection of Tua and the Miami offense? I don't know just yet. I think we'll find out more of that answer when they play New England. And if Tua is able to figure out and crack the code on Bill Belichick's defense, I think I would be more of a believer. But if I had to choose between the two, I might still lean again and go back to Burrow again, just because of the fact that there's a little bit more trust there, a little bit, because again, they're both one hit away. I mean, again, any quarterback, but it feels like with those two, any tackle, there's a chance that they could be out for a good amount of time.
Yeah. No, that's a good. I mean, I think I would stick with Burrow. I mean, just the upside. I feel like the upside is there. Tua, like you said, is that one hit wonder, I guess. Maybe.
And
I don't
I don't know necessarily if it's one hit because the way he was making those passes, it almost looked like those that Alabama year he had prior to coming into the NFL, where the passes were just 100% on target, and he might be in rhythm. So again, it may not be necessarily a 100% fluke, but I just don't know how much you can keep replicating in the NFL.
I
I
think
mean
Burrow
that
bounces back. I'll probably be on him this week. I haven't looked at the slate though to see, who all is playing
But
who
I would
and
say a sneaky
ownerships.
pick for people out there, Jordan
they get
Addison.
Baltimore this week. They're in Cincinnati against Baltimore.
I won't play him. Isn't that the same division? That's another division rival.
That's a
Yeah, but it's
division
the thing
rival.
about it. It's like how we said last week that Cleveland has owned Cincinnati. Cincinnati has owned Baltimore since the time that Joe Burrow's been there. That's just that weird, this division
Well, then you
weirdness.
might talk me into it. You might.
I don't know.
Don't
I
get
mean,
out there.
is that at Baltimore or is that
It's in Cincinnati. It is
okay?
they get them at
Okay.
home.
Oh, okay. So then I like that matchup as well with them being at home.
I don't feel like
You
the
have to get with the
secondary.
crowd
I mean,
noise.
I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but CJ Stroud, even though we got the shit beat out of us, CJ Stroud was picking the defense apart. I mean, we just didn't.
Very good. Y'all just let go. I don't know why y'all let go, but at one point y'all were doing really good against him, and
It
I was
was
like,
really
uh-oh.
close for a second
I mean,
there.
Yeah, I was like,
he was
I
he was
mean,
28.
yeah.
If CJ Stroud was 28 to 44 for 242 yards with no touchdowns, that was the problem. Like he couldn't get the ball into the end zone, but that's a
It's a solid
underrated.
defense.
That
They
defense.
got
Roquan
Roquan
Smith,
Smith. Yeah.
and Jadeveon Clowney, I think, is on that team now.
Yep. Is Marcus
So
Peters?
I think Marcus Peters is he on
Kyle
this?
Hamilton at safety. They have some really
Yes.
good players. I think Patrick Queen, or did he leave?
No, he's
Patrick Queen
there.
also at the linebacker
Queen's still
spot.
there. Peters is I
Yeah,
think is in
Queen and
Vegas
Smith
now.
at the linebacker spot. So I mean,
Yes.
that's a solid defense that could show up to play. It's going to be definitely a tougher out, but
I mean they did lose. They did
Chase.
obviously
I do
lose
like
J.K.
Higgins
Dobbins
versus those. But I
I don't
think with
think
their
he
running
needed
scheme,
him
they
though.
could kind of plug in a running back,
I
and it
mean,
would
Lamar's
be
gonna
the
take it
same
all
thing.
anyways. They have another one too. I think they shared with JK last year. So
I know they had Gus Edwards
yeah,
uh,
that's it.
as well there, who's more of a power back, but still
So
serviceable. Gives you basically what Dobbins was going to give you.
to be honest, I don't think they utilized their running back much last year because Lamar Jackson is both the running back and the quarterback.
I
So
mean, I think if I'm J.K. Dobbins, I'm the Baltimore Ravens. I'm just like, it's been real, it's been great, but it ain't been real great with J.K. Dobbins. No offense. I never really thought I saw that from him as a Ohio State running back. I felt a lot of people were coming off of how good Zeke was coming right out of Ohio State at that time. And we've seen some good Ohio State running backs in the league, but I always feel like they have this like high ass ceiling and they do good for a couple years, unlike a Ohio State quarterback who just comes in and shits the bed from the beginning. Ohio State running backs have this ceiling like and they just never they live up to it for 1 year and they have a good time and they're end up eating too many cookies and look like Medea on the sideline like Zeke
like
Yeah,
does.
Zeke,
I've
that's what I was about
watched.
to say.
I was able to kind of look into Dobbins kind of in the kind of fantasy drive kind of beginning of the stages of working through who I wanted to draft, and I did look at potentially pairing Dobbins with Jackson just to kind of take a little bit more of that running game. But I saw that there was multiple injuries, primarily in his knees, and additional surgeries that he had gone through the year before, which made me a little bit hesitant. And sure enough, this game he ended up tearing his Achilles, and just unfortunately, you just have those running backs
That seemed that Achilles
who
was
just get the
nasty injury this week.
I don't
yeah,
like ever pairing a running back with a mobile quarterback because I think they are negatively correlated. And what I mean by
gotcha.
that is I think that in order to score, great points with a running back, he needs touchdowns. And if you have a mobile quarterback like Hurts or Jackson, they will take those touchdowns from the running back when they
That's
run
true.
them in. And now they are negatively correlated. You have this running back who's rushed for 80 yards on 10 attempts, but he's got no touchdowns. So he's got 8 points, right? And then
Sure,
that's not going to cut it for anybody. He needs that
sure,
touchdown, but his quarterback is hogging him, or the same correlation with Saints, right? Saints is a little different. Their quarterback's not going to hog it per se, but Taysom Hill might come in as quarterback and take it. And now Jamal
You're
Williams ain't getting
exactly
it. So
right. You're exactly right with this running quarterback. I mean, we all were hearing the chatter because of no Jonathan Taylor to take a roster a Deion Jackson or a Evan Hull in
that
Indianapolis, and
one
Anthony Richardson showed us that
stole him.
nope,
Stole him.
I'm getting them all, and then I'm gonna go to the end zone, like the end of the game's on the line. I'm gonna get my ass stolen, and then I'm not gonna get back up. So
Exactly.
um like
They
and
took him from
that
Deion Jackson, made him fucking useless every
and
time.
then
He
and then
was
that like I said,
it
if
was
you
stupid.
rostered Hull just because you were told to roster Hull the rookie, the kid's gonna think it's gonna sit out for a couple weeks because he's hurt too. He got hurt on Sunday. So yes, the running quarterback pairing with the running back, it never ends well with
It works.
anybody.
It works for pass catching backs because you're not expecting a pass catching back to run the ball in. You're expecting them to catch the ball and run it
gotcha.
in which case the quarterback eats and the pass catching back eats. But also with the pass catching backs on DraftKings, you get the point for the reception. So it's okay to correlate a pass catching running back with a rushing quarterback, but it's negative correlation to pair a only first down, second down back, running back with a quarterback because they feast into each other. Doesn't mean that some weeks like Dobbins could go out and get 3 rushing touchdowns, but what it means is that's going to be less likely to happen, and now you're going to be guessing when that's going to happen because
I mean, Justice
Lamar
Hill did that
Jackson is
shit,
going to
but
do
it
it
was flukes. It was
more
all
often. Yeah,
flukes.
that too. You'll see that shit happen where, and that goes back to that double running back committee I was talking about earlier with B. John Robinson and Algier. You're guessing now which one's going to get the touchdowns. Now, if you would have put a rushing quarterback on that team, it makes everything even worse. I don't want none of that. I don't want none of those players because it's too much now.
We just got a running quarterback question right here. Drew says, I drafted Russell Wilson. Should I cut him? Murray is my other. Well, of course, Murray's not. He's still hurt. So you need to keep Russ for now, unless you can some way to
pick up Jordan Love.
If you could pick up Jordan Love, we said that earlier. If you could pick up Jordan Love, he's there. What quarterbacks are available on the waiver wire for you? And if you can drop a couple of them, we'll tell you which one we think works best. But I think I did hear some stuff about Sean Payton and Russell Wilson being polar opposites. I don't feel like everybody thought that the short man thing with like Russell Wilson being small and it was going to work like Peyton and Breeze and Sean Payton. I always felt he was a like the not the best quarterback because he was he was a scab quarterback during the like 80s NFL strike, right? So he always had that chip on his shoulder, kind of like being too small. But I just don't think him and Russell Wilson work. I don't think they ever get on the same page.
I played Russell Wilson. Cody knows I played him in GPP and the afternoon slate only because I was trying to get different.
Yeah.
And I was trying to, Sean Payton was the Saints coach, like the best coach, man. Like I see potential for it. Cody don't see potential for it. I don't know what article he read. I see potential for Russell Wilson getting better than he's ever been underneath Sean Payton. I
could be wrong. 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he and no interceptions. It could get better. I could see it could get better. I only can go up.
That's what I was gonna say. I see it getting better.
I don't see it. I just don't see him and Sean Payton ever getting on the same page. I'll rock with Sean Payton with you all day long, but I'm not rocking with Russell Wilson. It's just a personality difference. Games. I don't think it ever works.
Give it 3 games. If Russell Wilson is not better in 3 games and popping off, you cut his ass because he is dog shit if he doesn't get better under Sean Payton. He showed last year he wasn't worth his money and he was dog shit. I actually wouldn't even have drafted him this year if I were you. But since you have him and he's under Sean Payton, give him 3 games and see if they can figure out what has happened to Russell Wilson and why.
How many rushing yards did Russell Wilson have?
No idea. I know that
one attempt and 1 yard.
Okay. See, and that's the thing was that
15.18 points. I'd carry his ass.
When he was at his best with Marshawn, there was still that scrambling ability. But of course, as he's now aged through the league, he's no longer going to be that style quarterback. And I just don't know if there's enough value from a fantasy perspective because of the fact that, again, there's not a lot of scrambling yards. And it seems like he's maybe only going to throw for maybe 230 to 250.
He put on too much weight.
2 touchdowns.
Unless
I just don't think that's enough.
But that's what I'm saying.
How many people in your league, if Russell Wilson is the best quarterback available, he's the best quarterback available. But I can name 15 other quarterbacks that I would rather have rostered right now. Brock Purdy is available. Go grab Brock Purdy. There's you a hot take. Go grab Brock Purdy because that dude he's no fluke. He showed it in 9 games last season under Kyle Shanahan. This dude's going to have a Matt Schaub under Kyle Shanahan in Houston type year or a freaking Matt Ryan in Atlanta type year. Dude's good.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also go back to what, Brad was talking about the one rush. I think that's why I think Russell Wilson's going to get better under Sean Payton. He's going to turn him into a pocket passer. He's got too much weight on him, man. My man gained like 50 pounds. There's no way he's going back to being a mobile quarterback. He's been eating good and enjoying life. He getting that fat paycheck. If he can teach him to be that pocket passer that Drew was, go. I wouldn't cut him right now. But
even with him being kind of a great pocket passer, I have to question, but who is he really throwing the ball to? So even
Sutton,
if you are
he's got Sutton out there that I wouldn't knock Sutton at all. If he was on a different team behind a better quarterback, I think we'd see a lot more. You put him with
I think
Burrow
he's definitely
a
solid receiver. He reminds me a little bit of has that Devontae Parker to him. He'll show up for 2 or 3 games a
Two
year,
or three
Jerry's
games
coming
of this
back.
but
fucking
then
air.
Jerry's gonna come back.
and then you'll never really see him
Judy,
again.
Yeah.
you
From
got
that
Judy
standpoint,
Sutton. I like the I like the
I
targets
kind of like
there.
the rushing game a little bit more, the running game a little bit more with them. I believe with Javonte Williams, kind of
Yep.
what he's bringing, more so than I
Samaje
believe in
Samaje
some of the
Perine was
other
a good
players.
pickup if
I
he's
just
available
don't
on your
know if
waiver wire
Cortland
too.
Sutton is gonna, affect the defenses enough each week to kind of really push Russell into that 300-yard mark that we're kind of hoping from a fantasy perspective that he has. I just don't see it. I see 225 to 250,
I see
Yeah.
it being
So
maybe
mediocre as
1 or
well,
2
but
touchdowns.
I would still wait and see if it gets better under Sean Payton before I made a drastic decision like cut him. I agree with Brad that I think there's a higher chance that Russell Wilson is just shit now, and Broncos need to figure out something elsewhere, drafting better wide receivers, or they already started with getting the best, what I think is one of the best head coaches in the NFL and always has been, but you got to do a little bit more than that. Russell Wilson's got to come to play,
and
and
We'll have to
and
ask the listener on who's in that quarterback slot for him, or as far as for on the waiver wire, because I'm looking at ours and our 10-man Cody, and I see uh, uh, Matthew Stafford still out there, Derek Carr is still out there, Jared Goff still out there,
Derek
Jordan
Carr.
Love's still out there.
I like Derek Carr way
If
more than
you
Russell
even want a
Wilson.
sneaky pick, even some of the rookies, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. So I would just say to the question,
it
hey,
it
work
depends
that
on who you
waiver
got.
wire, man. You might be able to find you something that you may not think from a. We're looking at Russ from Super Bowl perspective, Russ, or he's been in the league for a long time, Russ. But you got to kind of look at it also from, well, what have you done for me lately, Russ? And so
Yeah,
again,
nothing.
again, is a Jared Goff against a suspect Seattle defense, for instance. That's a viable play. I could see
If
potentially
you
being
have a St.
touchdown.
Brown, if you have a St.
Yeah.
Brown, I think Jared Goff is a hell of a play. Even if at least at this point, like it sounds, we could be like you could be a waiver wire every week. What's good kind of thing. I mean, if you have a Amon-Ra St. Jared Goff, I mean, I could see that. If you have like I said, if Brock Purdy's available and you have a Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Brock Purdy, so that's there, and then kind of like that kind of can transition us into where I was trying to get us to with where our whole started this whole conversation with running quarterbacks with running backs in general. So that kind of like leads us to A1 suspect here, Philadelphia Eagles, and the shit show that they have in the running back room. They ran out Kenneth Gainwell this last week, and he got touches, but he's hurt. He's got a rib injury. So they set Rashad Penny. They didn't let DeAndre Swift out on the field. Boston Scott's fill size. What do we what are we doing here? And you have a quarterback who is a running back who basically carries linemen every week. And so I think like therein lies your problem. If you compare Jalen Hurts with Devontae Smith or AJ Brown or Dallas Goedert, go for it. But do not, absolutely by no means, chase that action with DeAndre Swift. I messed up and drafted Rashad Penny, and I dropped him at the first tip that I knew that he wasn't ever going to play. So yeah, I think that kind of can bring us into where we're trying to get with tomorrow night's game with Minnesota.
I'm playing
Versus Eagles.
I'm playing all of them that you just mentioned in daily fantasy GPP.
Oh, GPP, maybe yes. It could. I mean, we've seen Boston Scott. We've seen Boston Scott end up in nuts before. I'm pretty
optimal
sure.
lineup for sure. Penny too.
Yeah.
In the flex, not the
But
captain.
Kenny's out.
Flex.
Kenny is out. He is not playing tomorrow. Are you talking about Kenny G? Or you said Rashad Penny? My fault. Yes,
Penny,
when he was in Seattle. Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of those games before they decided to find Kenneth Walker. Yes, Penny was there. So yeah, I think what you have a must play for tomorrow. You think that's a must play? Do you on somebody for Minnesota or that other than we know yes, we need to get in AJ Brown. Of course, the stars, right?
I'm gonna go in. I guess maybe I'll go out on the limb here, but that's okay. I believe that Jordan Addison's gonna have a good game tomorrow. He had 4 catches, I believe, 60 yards and a long touchdown pass. Um, Last week in his rookie showing, usually a lot of times when a rookie does score early, those offensive coordinators start scheming it up again to draw it up. I really like this matchup against Philadelphia's defense. I believe that in watching Philly's defense play against New England, specifically against Kashawn Butte out of LSU, I saw him finding a lot of space. Now, Mac wasn't necessarily always able to get him the ball in the rain, but there was definitely a lot of space, which lends me to believe that um, Philly most likely is going to go into the game plan with trying to take Justin Jefferson out of the game, thus leaving the other options on the field to use. So again, if you have Jordan Addison on your either on your bench or in your lineup, I would say go ahead and go with him against this Philly defense because I believe that the upside is there. And I believe that the target ability or the target share should be there again because I honestly think that the number one goal for the Philly Eagles going to be to take care of Justin Jefferson,
Did
which
Addison
will open
play
space.
last week?
Yes, he played.
Yes,
He had
yeah.
again four receptions, I believe, 60
He
yards
was
and a
he was the
touchdown.
one that Brad set for Kadarius Toney. We told him
He
to
was at
play. I told him to play Toney over Addison because I thought he was going to be third wheel or fourth wheel on that offense. But he showed that.
I called Tony. Called Tony
and
down.
he
He should have
called
played
Tony,
Addison. I
and
just didn't
I
know
should
how well
have.
he did.
And I wasn't sure. Of course, with a rookie, you never really know until you can kind of see it. But also, I did see a report from the offensive coordinator today stating that they plan to basically continue to expand the role of Jordan Addison moving
He works
forward
well out
throughout
the
the
slot.
season.
He works really well
And
out of the
so
slot.
I love his route running ability. Kirk Cousins loves those style receivers as well that can really find that space in the gap if he's not throwing it over top to Justin.
You think
So
he's gonna feel
strong
like
play, strong
Thielen?
lock it, lock it.
Yes,
He's like a
yes,
Thielen play.
yes. He's gonna. I think he's going
Yes, I
to have
believe
that
he's the Thielen.
12 to 17, at least for league purposes. But I think that he's going to have that 12 for 17 hover around 60 some odd yards and a touchdown or two every week because he's going to get red zone targets. Because what do people do down on the red zone? Who do you cover? You cover Hawkinson and you cover Jetta. You can't cover all three of them. You can't.
Correct.
You can't. And in the Eagles, we've seen that they are susceptible, like Brad just said, to the slot. And so you have to pick somebody. And so
who's running out the slot? It's going to be primary Addison.
Addison, because he's
They
a
have
smaller
Addison.
he's a
And
smaller
then
guy.
also KJ Osborne, but they said that while KJ might have gotten a few more reps and a few more plays, the production was more adamant with
Does
what you saw out of Addison.
does Jefferson ever line up in the slot?
He does. They move it around and they draw it up, but I believe again with the route running skills of Jordan Addison, even if you lined him up in what kind of would be your exposition, he could still find ways to find gaps basically within the defense, maybe looking at some deep in routes, things along those lines that'll really space him open. And again, with just I believe the double coverages and also the sort of having TJ Hawkinson also on that team helps Addison because of the fact that again that's one more option that the defenses have to take away. So he may be getting the third cornerback or a safety.
Correct.
And that's the type of when I'm looking at
And
each week,
Cousins airs it out. So
and Cousins likes to air it
He's not
out on the
afraid
touchdown pass that he
to
had.
gun it, you know.
correct.
On the touchdown pass that Addison had, it was a further route. Looks almost like some sort of a post route or some sort of pattern leading to the goalpost. So when I see those type of routes, I know that they're trying to scheme them open in those big play type scenarios, and so that's exciting from a fantasy perspective.
I don't have any numbers on Addison, but I can tell you last week Jefferson accounted for 36% of the targets and Hawkinson accounted for 28% of the targets. It's huge for season long and DFS purposes. If you're thinking DraftKings, you're thinking I need Hawkinson and Jefferson no matter what. That kind of target share is massive for PPR. And then on the flip side, you have Philly, two people, and we already know those two people are AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
I'm
They
surprised
they
Dallas Carter didn't get anything. That
exactly.
just killed
I'm
me.
shocked on
They
that as
both
well. I don't know
accounted
what
for
the
30%.
rain could have been a factor though. I know that in the
And
weather
no Shane
conditions could have
Steichen,
been a
bro. I feel
factor.
like that has a lot to do with it. I feel
Well,
like that I'm not gonna. I like Jalen Hurts because I have Jalen Hurts and 10-man PPR. I have him, and I want him to be Jalen Hurts of last year. But I feel like he's Jalen Hurts of 2 years ago. Right now is what I saw on Sunday. I feel like he had that meteoric rise to the Super Bowl, right? And then Shane Steichen, like, I'm taking my talents to Indy, and we saw that we might see that with Anthony Richardson type. You know what I'm saying? Or is Jalen Hurts? Did he fleece us all and get paid? And now he's going to take this astronomical dive because he doesn't have his offensive coordinator. We have seen
I'm gonna
this
wait on that.
time and time again.
I agree.
I'm not bailing on him. I'm not bailing on him. I'm not bailing on him.
Patriots. We cannot forget that was the Patriots, and the Patriots are
Exactly.
known for shutting down quarterbacks. So
And it was in the rain.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I'm saying
I'm gonna hold off on that. I think he airs it the fuck out and pops off against Minnesota. I think it's the same thing with Kirk Cousins, but this is gonna be an air it out kind of game. Let Jefferson beast. Let's AJ Brown and Devontae Smith beast. Devontae Smith and AJ Brown both made up for about 30%.
I don't like the line on this though. It's
What's
Philly -6. I don't like that at all.
I think it's because Minnesota just lost by like something like that to a team they should have beat.
They lost
to the Bucks, to the Buccaneers.
Yeah, they lost to the Bucks, and I think Minnesota was favored by 5 in that game, if I remember correctly. So they went from being favored by 5 to losing by a shit ton.
And it's over under is 49. I think it's gonna hit. I think it's gonna hit that maybe.
Yeah, I do too. That's about.
I can see a lot of points also.
Solid number for that, and
I can see this. This is the perfect type of matchup for Hurts to have a Hurts-like game that he had last year, where you can see, maybe 75 yards rushing and a touch,
Minnesota's
260 and another 2.
Minnesota's a 29th ranked defense against quarterbacks. That's a shine for Hurts.
Yeah.
I'm about to floss on y'all and make ESPN top 10 plays for the media to cover for everybody. I definitely see some potential in all the what I would call chalk or all the stars of this game. Now the question is, for daily fantasy purposes, which of the little turds do you grab exposure to and why?
I mean, a Quez Watkins
as well. I know I've been talking about Addison, but
Watkins,
Quez Watkins, because I saw I saw Jalen hit him on Sunday a couple times, maybe once.
Think about prime times last year. Watkins broke the slate.
And Zach Pascal, is he still in Philly?
I don't know, but I don't think he's ever broken the slate.
I saw Quez Watkins last week. I believe catching a pass across the middle.
Yeah.
Do you think a backup tight end could break the slate, considering both of these teams like their tight ends, Hawkinson and Goddard, however you want to say it? Do you think there's a chance that Jack Stoll or Josh Oliver or Albert Akawugbungnam break some slate?
We know how he was in Denver, but I'm saying, so this is Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield, right, against Minnesota. Mike Evans went 6 for 66 for a TD. Chris Godwin, slot extraordinaire, okay, 5 for 51. I mean, there's your Jordan Addison production there,
and that's with Baker
Mayfield.
That's with Baker. We saw Chris Godwin's slot performance with Tom Brady, so
I'm just saying, like, the slot is deficient in Minnesota also. So who's coming out of the slot in Philly?
Smith.
Right?
Smith's gonna eat all day long. Have him in your flex.
That's another stardom. just like from last week.
Yeah,
Is
season
Yes.
long
Devontae Smith
gotta have
again
them.
here. I really like
Fly,
this
Eagles
matchup
fly.
against Minnesota.
The
Yeah, I
Slim
really like
Reaper.
this matchup.
You got to play them for daily fantasy purposes though. You're gonna have to hit a pump play. You're gonna have to get your captain right too, right? So I have a little bit of notes
What?
on that too, where the captain slot for DraftKings purposes. It's been for Philly. It's been their QB 30% of the time. It's been their wide receiver 20% of the time, which would be AJ Brown. By the way, I looked that up to see who was one. And then 15% of the time, it's the running back. Now that might have been Miles Sanders at that time because this is historical data. This is based off of, but
Gotcha.
for Minnesota, it's going to be their wide receiver 44% of the time. That's Jefferson, and that's basically it. Like it's literally that. It's like 6% the QB, 6% the tight end. Like that's irrelevant when you're talking historical data, right? You're just looking at Jefferson as the captain for Minnesota, and then you're looking at a couple options for Philly. But also a thing to note is the stack. We talked about the stack last week, where we're stacking 3 players from one team versus 3 players from the other team. That's a 3-3 stack, or 4 players from one team versus 2 players in the other team. It's a 4-2 stack. Well, in this game, you could either run a 3-3 stack, which will hit 34% of the time, or a 4-2 stack in favor of Philly, which would win 32% of the time. So I think from when I'm making my lineups this week, I'm going to be running 3-3 and 4-2 only in favor of Philly, meaning 4 Philly players and 2 Minnesota players. But you can't ignore the fact that when Minnesota's player is in the captain spot, it's essentially Justin Jefferson. It's either Justin Jefferson or somebody on the other team. Is essentially what they're saying when they say 44%. So, and you look at that and you're like, oh, well, Phillies is 30% the QB or 20% their wide receiver. So it's kind of a great narrow down. If you're looking at people to put in a captain spot on DraftKings, do some with Justin Jefferson, do some with Hurts, and do some with AJ Brown, and maybe Devontae Smith if you want. But other than that, get creative in the flex. Don't get creative in the captain spot this week. Get creative in the flex. Like we were talking about playing Albert Ukawagumbi in a couple lineups. He's the 3rd tight end for Philly.
Olamide Zaccheaus. Y'all remember him from Atlanta?
Yep, there is people like that going to be in here.
He is the 4th. He is the 4th wide receiver in Philly. He's that. I mean, Quez Watkins is number 3, but I mean that's the 3rd. But
he had no targets last week. I will announce that, but doesn't mean he won't pop off on prime.
He's for $200. He's $200. He's $200 right now. So
get him in your lineup, and he gets us a touchdown. He broke the slate. You got to have him in order to win because he's 200. If Cody says he's only 200, you got to have him. You got numerous tight ends, though. These are teams that like to hit their tight end. You got to pay attention to that. I'll give you a good one. Last week, Kirk Cousins threw 28% of his targets to TJ Hawkinson. He also threw 27% of his targets to Josh Oliver, or Olave, however you say his name.
Oliver.
That's the backup tight end.
Yeah.
They hit them both equally.
6.2.
So all these people going into this slate tomorrow on DraftKings, and they're like, oh, I got to have me some Hawkinson. And they're completely ignoring Josh, they're going to get smoked. So right now, we only have data on this season. Who cares about last season? And right now, it's showing that Minnesota is willing to get the ball to both of them. And it might even be some crazy shit down on the line when they're on the goal line where
that 12-man personnel that they like to run.
Yeah, they dump off and dump one off to Oliver or vice to Hawkinson or Munt. They have Munt on their team too. Johnny Munt. There's another tight end. So get exposure to all these players. I wouldn't sell yourself cheap now.
Can you see, you got any ownership projections that what you're looking at right now?
Kind of.
What's that Alexander Madison coming in, because he's essentially the bell cow there in Minnesota. So I mean he didn't light the world on fire last week, but I know I'm sitting here looking right now on DraftKings. So I was like, he's like 7,600.
No, let me see, because I don't have like that. So I could only see what they were doing last week, their target share. But for this week, Alexander Madison in the It's coming in at a whopping 29% owned, which is the number one ownership over all the running backs right now.
Of course he is, because he's the only one that's solid. I mean,
But don't sleep on Swift. Swift's gonna get that starting role this week, hopefully.
Yeah.
And we've seen what he can do in Detroit with catching passes for touchdowns and running the ball. He is not a trash running back by any means. And
4,000. I mean, he's
like I said earlier, quarterbacks that run take negative correlation with their running backs. But there's your way to get different right there, right? If you're gonna have a lineup that doesn't have Hurts in the captain or in it at all, you have to have Swift. Because if Hurts isn't throwing a touchdown or running it in, that means it's going to Swift. Somebody's running it in. Gotta have Swift or Boston Scott, one of them. That's your way to get different.
Running back touchdown. I see a running back touchdown tomorrow. I do see.
I mean, we know that Swift knows that defense from his time in Detroit. So, I mean, he's found his way in the end zone against them before.
If you're trying to,
how much did you say that Swift was going? 4,000.
4,000.
4,000, man. That's so cheap. If you roster him in the captain spot, that's 6,000 in the captain spot. You can do so much in your line. You could put everybody else in there that you wanted. You could put Hurts in there. You could put Justin Jefferson in there. You could put AJ Brown in there and probably Devontae Smith, and just have this god tier lineup of all beasts. So there's a question in the chat about a prediction for tomorrow's game. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be shots fired from both teams. I think Kirk Cousins can and has shown to play to the potential of his opposing team. So when the other team's airing it out and scoring touchdowns, he's trying to copy that and he's airing it out. They do have Justin Jefferson, as we were talking about. He's going to make plays. Doesn't matter how many people you put on him. He's like Tyreek Hill. He's going to make plays. He's going to, get the ball down the field for them. He's going to have touchdowns. It's Justin Jefferson. And if that's happening,
Minnesota won the 11 one-score games last season. I think Minnesota has the full on God potential. I mean, you too, right, Brad? They have full potential, but I don't know if. I don't think we know that they lost to Tampa, and Tampa has a mediocre at best defense now. It's not the same defense that won a Super Bowl. I think the defense in Philadelphia is much better than that defense that they just played, and they just lost 17-20 to a Baker Mayfield led Tampa team who is basically in shambles, right? I literally think that this is the game where Minnesota plays up, like Phil's just saying, plays up to their opponent, and Philly gets back on track, and we see a good game. I think it gets close to that 49 that it's over. And
I mean, I see a 27-20 style game with the Eagles winning it 27-20. Based off of what I saw from the Tampa Bay game with Minnesota, I don't know if Minnesota truly has corrected the issues on defense that's plagued them all last year. I know that they got, I believe, Brian Flores in as the new defensive coordinator, and they're doing some adjustments, but it just seems like some of the same things that bit them before are still biting them now. Against a high-power offense, in which you also have a dual threat quarterback, I think that dual threat is going to cause a lot of issues for that Vikings defense, who I'm not necessarily sure are built for that style of a quarterback. Again, which will lead to more production out of the Eagles side. Again, which is why I see a 27-20 Philly over Minnesota. Whereas again, Kirk's still going to be Kirk. He's still going to get his yards. He's still going to get his points. But I just don't see – I see Minnesota giving up just one or two more big plays that end up costing them the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, man, I think that's –
Kicker tomorrow, Phil? Thoughts?
If I take a kicker, it's not going to be from Minnesota.
It's going to be Elliott, right? I mean, he had 18 points. He had 18 points on Sunday. I know, again, that was in the rain.
I've seen Minnesota not use their kicker when they should have. In this game, I don't even think they should use their kicker, right? There's times when they should use their kicker and they're not doing it. This game, you can't be making field goals while Hurts is scoring touchdowns. It's just not going to happen. It's not even fitting into a game script. I think Minnesota knows that. They're ready for that, and they're ready to play through. I might have a little bit of exposure because I do multiple lineups to, a Minnesota kicker, but it's not a full fade for me. But if you're making one lineup or a single entry, I'm not playing him. I'm not doing that. I'll take an Eagles kicker. I think they move the ball easier, more fluently, and they can afford to kick field goals because they can also bang touchdowns if the pressure's on and they need to.
So if I had a stack choice for tomorrow's night, would much rather go with Hurts and Brown, or would I much rather go with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson if I had to stack for tomorrow? Or
That's a
should
good
there be some
question.
other stack options like, Smith and Hurts or Kirk Cousins? I guess I just wanted to know kind of what you guys' feels are on sort of what type of stack the listeners or anyone
I mean,
should
I
be
think
trying
that's a
to go
good.
into tomorrow night with.
That's a solid question. I think that Hurts outscores Kirk, but I think Jefferson outscores Brown. So it all depends. Like you could roster Hurts with Brown and it come out to the same amount of points as Cousins with Jefferson because of what I just said. One scoring more than the other, and the other one scoring more than the other, and then they balance out.
Yeah,
Um, I
yeah.
think I think the play for DraftKings may be Hurts with Devontae Smith because he gets more targets. Um,
Okay.
I think AJ Brown has higher touchdown upside. So FanDuel, AJ Brown with Hurts all day long. And I think I'd choose that over Cousins and Jefferson on FanDuel as well. By like a clear cut. Like it's not close, I don't think. Um,
Okay. Okay.
because Hurts is gonna dominate Cousins on FanDuel. He might dominate him on, DraftKings too, but Jefferson might dominate Brown on DraftKings. So a FanDuel definitely Hurts and Brown on DraftKings. Maybe Hurts and Devontae Smith. I also don't dislike Kirk Cousins and Jefferson. I could rock that. Could also rock Kirk Cousins and Addison if you're trying to get different and have a little different
Yeah.
exposure. I can tell you right now, Jefferson's probably gonna be the highest owned player on the slate
Oh
besides
yeah.
Hurts. So
Oh
if you're having, I mean, you could also have Jefferson and Addison, and that's fine. But if you're choosing between one or the other, Jefferson and cash, Addison and GPP. That's how you get
yeah.
different. That's how you take down money. And that'll take me to another thing real quick before Cody gives his answer. Cash lineups, absolutely 100%. You're locking in Jalen Hurts as your captain in cash lineups.
I like that. I mean, I like, obviously, yes, Jalen Hurts is probably your captain 100% in the cash lineup. Just the simple fact of the matter is he's more than likely going to be owned in every lineup. I mean, especially cash wise, or if people are playing them properly, right? Like they're playing them as they should, highest owned. I mean, you get the people that go into the lower tournaments and then they just think they know football and they just do that. But that's probably that's a good answer. I like the I mean, I'm just playing around right now. I know Phil usually puts it up on the screen, but playing around right now on DraftKings, and you can have a running back, a Philly running back this is for a GPP play, not a cash play, right?
Yeah.
So a stack, you could stack them both. You could have two both quarterbacks. You can do this is a 3-3 Philly and Minnesota. You could roster a low end running back for Philly and that could be your punt, like a DeAndre Swift and Hurts, and then pair Hurts with Devontae Smith, and then a Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and then it leaves you money 800 for your punt play. I mean, it leaves you about 2,000 for a punt play. So you're whatever, you don't have to use all your money. I mean, your punt plays, but down in under 2,000, that leaves your Josh Olivers or your any of those tight ends that they could go to, possibly other than TJ Hawkinson.
It's Jack Stoll, Alamod Zacchaeus, they're all 200, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you went 3-3, if you went 4-2, I mean that leaves the Zacchaeus. Yeah, like I said, this some other people down here. What is this? What's his name? Grant Calcaterra or whatever. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So him and there's guys down here.
Okay.
Plenty. It's you got to, when it comes to those punt plays, you got to pay attention on what comes out tomorrow, because these guys, there's guys that get signed off of the practice squad day of the game. They bring you up, and then that guy we have seen in the past has been the punt that wins the money. I mean, that guy comes up, he has, because, and it goes back to what you said earlier, Brad. They don't have tape. Also, they don't have tape on this guy.
Also, a pump play that's often good sometimes, and it was just one, and we were all over him, was Hardy. He was 200, and the reason that he was even better than, you know, just your normal 200 players, because he was the punt returner. Punt returners can score points when they run it back, and now it's not guaranteed, but it's higher upside, right? So you could grab, there's like 5 or 6 players down here for 200. But if one of them is also the starting punt returner for that team, he's got higher upside than the other ones because he can run a punt return back and get you those points. So you want to pay attention to that. Now, I don't know who the backup quarterback is for Eagles or for Minnesota.
Marcus Mariota is the backup quarterback for the Eagles? Philly. Yes, and we have seen that before. Also, Mariota coming in and carrying him. Yeah.
So it is not beyond Jalen Hurts going down with a minor injury or a significant injury and him having to come in and play the game out. And with that said, that's a very low-owned person that nobody or only a few people are going to be on, because who's playing backup quarterbacks in DFS, right? He's also the type of quarterback that if you do, he can break the slate. He's not like Zach Wilson, right? Comes in and still shits the bed because he sucks. Mariota,
Nick Mullins is the backup for Minnesota.
I wouldn't roster him. I don't know nothing about him. But
we've seen Nick Mullins before. I mean, he started for San Francisco, and he's been around the league a little bit. I mean, I think this the most recent thing, he was either a USFL quarterback or an XFL quarterback. I think it was an XFL maybe. But he's one of those quarterbacks that's like stay ready kind of quarterback. Like if I'm and I'm going to throw this back to the Jets. If I'm the Jets, I'm calling Minnesota and saying, hey, we have a problem. I need you to have Nick Mullins ready, because we're 5 games in. We make it to the bye in week 7, and we're 2-4 because we have to play Dallas this coming week. And we have some other teams that like the Patriots in there, and we're getting ass stomped. I need Nick Mullins to come on over here and just steer the ship totally. Let's just try to get it even, because Zach Wilson is a bum. So,
but yeah, it's not totally behind throwing in backup quarterbacks to win DFS GPP tournaments. So always keep that in mind, especially if you're doing more than one entry. Shit, I might even do a single entry and like a $5 single entry and roster Mariota as my captain. And whether or not Hurts gets hurt or not, they might bring him in at like a goal line and have him do some weird ass trick play, and he runs it in and scores. And now, you know, I got a player that's a low owned that's now breaking the slate in the captain spot because he's getting 1.5 points. So
this Ty Chandler for Minnesota, the backup running back, he had 3 carries for a net of 0 yards and 1 reception for 18 yards on Sunday against Tampa. And here's the kicker. He also returned kickoffs. So he's 1,200. There's your upside. So in this 3-3 stack I was talking about, if you wanted to skip on the tight end, this Ty Chandler is the kick returner and the backup running back.
Yeah, he had 10% of rushes last week.
Yeah, so I mean, he didn't go anywhere. He didn't get anything. He had 2.8 points last week, but 2.8
broke through, and it would have broke the slate.
Yeah, one could have broke
15 yards kick returning. So that's That's where it's at. So there's your high upside. I mean, you can and you still have money to move around if you wanted to skip on Jeff on Cousins or whatever, right? So I wouldn't be afraid of that Ty Chandler tomorrow for a GPP strictly.
Yeah, I like that. I think the punt play I'm gonna focus the most on might be Quez Watkins. That's gonna be my punt play tomorrow. What are you thinking?
I like the Quez Watkins because we've seen it happen before. I will see if I'm 20 max or even 150 max, I think that you're gonna have stuff everywhere. But like if you're trying to get real different, I think Quez is probably it, or maybe seeing where I looked at the weather tomorrow. It's supposed to be 75 and perfect, no wind. So I don't think that's going to play into it. I'm wondering how kicking does tomorrow. Like I'm not saying that it's a captain worthy thing, but if Jake Elliott comes out there and we're getting there and we're just stalling, Jake Elliott's gonna get you 15 points, right? Like I mean, 4 or 5, 6 field goals if they're stalling, and that we could still run into that drastic. And this is something that Phil and I have said a million times. Come out on prime time, and dudes, the lights are too big. The lights are too bright, the night's too big, and Amazon Prime's breathing down your neck, and you're not putting on a show. And this is a defensive, slow-paced, running backs only kicking game. We've seen it a million times on the primetime slate, and it's burned us a million times. But we've also seen him come out. We've also seen him come out, and it's a Thursday night, and dudes are coming off of the week, and because they did good and they got a day off, and they come out and just put on a barn burner, So
it goes back to what I said last week, that when you're crafting lineups, you wanna build lineups the way the slate could go. So if you think like Cody's thinking, like we've all seen primetime games come out and be duds, kickers, running backs, build a slate like that. Build a whole lineup like that. Don't start mixing this shit. Don't be like, well, it could be a running back kicker game, so I'll put a kicker in this one. And you got fucking Justin Jefferson, Devontae Smith, and AJ Brown in that lineup, right? Because now it don't make sense, right? You want it to make sense. You want to put the kicker in the lineup that's going to play to that potential where the kicker's actually going to pop off. And that's in a game where there's a lot of running and it's slow and the defenses are holding up. You might even want to roster a kicker in the captain slot. Who's doing that? Not many people. Defensive in a captain spot, not many people, especially on a game like this. They're not going to be rostering one of these defenses in a captain spot. And like Cody just said, it could happen. And we've seen it happen, and it does happen.
If you want to be real, different with what Phil just said, the Philadelphia Eagles defense, 13 points last week. And we saw that it was mediocre. I mean, it was mediocre, right? Mediocre at best against a Mac Jones who actually looked like he kind of found himself a little bit last week, even though he wasn't hitting everything he should have been. 13 points. They're 6,600 in the captain slot. 6,600. That's not terrible. I mean, that's not a terrible number.
Spots.
I mean, that's if you sacrifice like the running back and then you want to get super different. I mean, you roster Alexander Madison, a Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, and then you got like 5,000 to play with. You get a tight end or a KJ Osborne or your kicker. Like so, Eagles 2 quarterbacks, Eagles defense 2 quarterbacks, a kicker, and a Minnesota running back, and then you pick which wide receiver you want for Eagles. I mean, it's possible, or you just totally go off the wall and say, okay, it's going to be super slow, and it's just going to be Kirk Cousins, running back, play action, the tight end, TJ Hawkinson, and then Philadelphia is only running the ball with Jalen Hurts because we're trying to kill the clock. I've seen it. We've seen it tons of ways. So you got to get different, as Phil says, get different.
Correct.
So
With that said, I think that touches everything on that game. We didn't touch the sport bet aspect of it. If I'm gonna bet this game, I'm taking the Eagles -6 is what I see them at right now. I just don't see after Minnesota throwing that game away against Tampa Bay, against Baker Mayfield, being able to stay within 6 to somebody like Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. So, with that said, I'm gonna have to rock with the -6.
I know.
Yeah, I
According
agree with
to
that.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it could be closer. I think it could be a field goal ball game. So I maybe that's just me feeling like that Minnesota's got what it takes to play up to the potential that they have. You're talking about overs and unders. I'm looking at Prize Picks right now, and for pass yards tomorrow, Kirk Cousins, the over is 262.5 passing, and Jalen Hurts is 251.5 passing. I think man, 262 yards is a lot, but I'm gonna go back and see what Mac Jones had.
Possible against the Eagles, man. We've seen it. We've seen that back end of the Eagles get dogged before.
Mac Jones had 316 yards last week on Sunday. 316 yards.
The most susceptible part of that defense is the secondary. If you're going to attack,
which is not terrible. So, I mean, it's a good secondary.
Not horrible,
but they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
James
Bradbury's hurt.
They get hit often. They have big games against them, so the over is definitely striking me. I think we were talking about it being like 47 or something earlier. I'm seeing it at 49.
Yeah, 49.
On mine, so that is pretty high. But if the sports book is projecting, Kirk Cousins throw for 262 and Hurts to be around the 250s, that's easily 50 points.
Yeah, and then rushing yards, Jalen Hurts.
I was going to say that's not even counting rushing.
Rushing yards, Jalen Hurts 46.5 and Kirk Cousins 3.5.
Like the over on Hurts rushing yards tomorrow too.
Yeah, and then Alexander Madison 49.5. That's up
to a little bit more for me for fantasy for tomorrow in my 12-man league.
You have Madison, right?
Yeah, I have Alexander Madison, and I'm looking like I'm going to be also going with Jordan Addison. So
I mean, it's
definitely going kind of heavy.
Not bad. I don't think that's bad for a season long, especially like seeing where it could go. Like we've seen. I just don't think in your situation, probably like trusting the fact that we have. You can have to go back to your to Mr. Where's Kadarius Toney? Can someone please find Kadarius Toney? I don't like that at all. It's
I have another option potentially that I might go with, but I haven't seen enough production as Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he had 3 catches last week. But not for as many yards as Jordan Addison was able to come up with. And when you don't trust Toney, who do you go with? So that's why I'm kind of leaning a little bit more
I think
Addison.
Personally trust. I hate to say this, even though Gino was. We were high on Gino, and Gino didn't do what we thought Gino was going to do. I still think I'm a little more attached to Kirk Cousins, and think that Kirk Cousins is going to get it to his wide receiver more than what Gino has, because Gino, Seattle didn't look the same. And maybe it's because they weren't biting on the run. Kenneth Walker wasn't weren't blowing people out like they have. So
I think anybody in mind that you'd be fading tomorrow?
Like full fade?
Full fade or going extremely low.
Do you trust Dallas Goedert to do anything? I mean, I would almost say I don't want to say 100% fade, because I do think that there's
last week.
But he didn't do anything last week, kind of outside of everybody who we talked about. I would almost say maybe Dallas Goedert just until he shows it.
I can agree with that. I mean, I was looking at fading Osborne. Is Osborne playing
That's
in
what,
this game?
yeah, he will
He is.
fade. I mean, he will play. Like we said that you said that he got more targets than Jordan Addison, but Addison did more with his than what KJ did.
So yeah, I think I'm full fading Osborne, or at least limiting exposure to like 5%.
Partial fade.
Yeah, like I like a
Yeah.
5% in a 20 max a lineup. I put him in a lineup and nothing more.
I think you limit. I mean, I've always been a Dallas Goedert believer, especially with Philadelphia, but now that was last season we saw the Shane Steichen type offense, and now we don't really know. He only had one target on Sunday, so I don't know if that was the Bill Belichick effect, because Bill Belichick always seems to do a really good job of limiting the tight end. We've seen that multiple times, but I think that I would go. I think I'm gonna be under, as much as I love Dallas Goedert. I think I'm gonna be under on him tomorrow. As someone that's different from KJ or and then I think I may full fade Greg Joseph, the kicker for the Vikings, but I could also blow up in my face.
Yeah, I'll full fade that with you, or limit exposure to one lineup at a 20 on the 20 max. 150 max, yeah, obviously.
Unless he comes in high on the cash lineup. I mean, if he's high owned tomorrow, just because people think it's going to be a kicking game, I'll throw the kicker. I'll just throw shit at the wall and let's just rock with it. If he's high owned, because he's a cheap kicker. I mean, he's really
looking like
cheap.
20% owned. That's pretty high. That is maybe a viable cash option.
He's 30.
Disagree.
He's 3,800. Where Jake Elliott's 4,200, right? So, I mean, if he's in a cash, if it's cash money and I need to do it, I think I'm rocking with. I mean, I'm just playing around with it right now. So,
yeah,
he's viable tomorrow in a cash lineup. So,
well, that's my put on tomorrow's game. I'm
taking Philly for the win.
Yeah, Philly for the win for sure.
So, but yeah, you guys got anything else?
Nope, I think we touched it all. I mean, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to join our Facebook group, Ballers and Briefs.
I will put the invite to the Facebook group in the YouTube description in the description. So if you want to join up, you just got to answer a few questions on what kind of fantasy you play, just so that we know you're really not a bot.
And then ask any questions you want in there. There's some good questions tonight. It's some good conversation. We'll be in there talking as usual.
And you don't have to limit it to DraftKings or FanDuel. I mean, we've played
whatever.
We've played I think Phil's played Yahoo DFS before. We've seen there's some other DFS providers out there.
Questions, shoot them over. I mean, that Russell Wilson one
earlier was good.
Send us a screenshot of who's available on your waiver wire, and we'll pick it apart for you on there, and each one of our thoughts on what you should do.
Yeah,
maybe take down your fantasy league this year. That's what we're here to do.
That's what we want. We want you to take that title belt, championship ring, trophy, and cash money.
Us out.
Yes, then you can say I got my info from Ballers and Briefs. So
yes, sir.
We will see you guys on Saturday to get you guys ready for Sunday. And in the meantime, feel free to drop us a line and leave us a comment or like, share, subscribe, do all that kind of fun stuff. And we are looking at coming out with a TikTok and some other stuff. So
some shorts here and there,
thoughts. Just let us know.
Shorts going.
Yes, sir.
Got you.
All right.
Peace out.
Peace out.